Hey, thank you for tuning in to Uncommon Women. I'm Shanera.
I'm Kate.
And I'm Jenny Lee.
And today we're actually going to be focusing on identity. So, jumping right into identity, I feel as though, the first few years of a child's life is important. You are molded into your identity by your parents.
As a child, you don't really have a choice of who your parents are. You don't have a choice of the environment. You don't have a choice of your house. You don't have a choice of your siblings or where you're at, where you wake up, what you eat. You don't have those freedoms. So as a child, you're dependent upon other people to take care of your needs, to meet your needs, whether it's neglect or whether it's full of love and nurturing and caring. Those are crucial. Neglect and nurturing. It really lays and determines what decisions you make when you're older and how you live when you're older, your teenage years and your adult years.
Yes, that is very crucial because when we don't have our parents that are taking care of us, it also affects us later on as growing up into a teenager and also as adulthood, and then as being when we get to that point where we're molded into our identity. So that kind of does affect us when we don't have any of that, especially when it comes to like no stability, no guidance, just things like that really do affect us in the future.
Yes, and the things that's actually pronounced over your life actually affects you as a future as well. When you're as a child, sometimes your parents or your siblings can say things that can actually haunt you when you're older, speak things over your life that's not you, like you're stupid or you're not going to amount to anything. And a lot of people get bullied as being children. And when they get older, if they don't actually take the time to dissect who they are as a person, it can affect them and their ability to be an adult. It can go with them. They feel as though that they are stupid or they can't achieve anything, when in reality, that's not who you are as a person. Your circumstance don't define who you are as a person. And growing up, well, me personally, growing up as the youngest, I've seen and experienced a lot of things being the youngest child. My siblings, I looked at them as role models, and that also played an important part on my identity because I have an older sister, and I'm like, her being older than me and her being a girl, or girl at the time, I wanted to be like her, and that molded into some of the portions of my identity as well.
For me, being a middle child, it was more like my brother was the first one, the first kid. My sister was the baby, so I'm kind of in the quiet zone. And I really seeked for my parents' affection, and I felt like I had to perform or work for it to gain their admiration, to stand out. Jenny, I know you were 1 of 9. I was 1 of 3, and I felt like it was really hard. Tell me how it felt to be the oldest of 9.
The being oldest of the 9, let's see. Having too much on you as a child from the point on from being 9, and from the time of being from 9 to 15, I had a lot. I helped raise 4 of my siblings. I do have a brother who's my full-blooded brother, which is, we're from a different father, and then the rest of them are from my stepfather. So as being 9 years old, I was taught how to bottle feed, bathe a baby, and I couldn't voice. I'm like, when you have that so much on you, and then you're just like, you feel like you don't have a childhood. Like from that point on, I felt like I couldn't be a child because being home while your mom went to do groceries was like you're left with these kids, or just sitting at home for hours and trying to bathe them, bathing them and clothing them, that's which it did kind of help me in my life later on as a parent now, as me having my 2 children, it did help me along the way, but being that young, it was just so much, and then not also being able not to be able to put a voice because it was just put on me. Rather, I didn't want it.
So you felt as though basically you didn't have a child life because you were forced to actually grow up, faster than you were actually called to because you had the responsibilities of being an adult. Is that true?
Yes.
I think as I'm on the other end, like as a child, I was really sheltered. I got to experience a lot, but I didn't get to experience the diversity of how diverse the world is. I only knew about one type of cheese, and it was American cheese. And then when I found out that provolone and Swiss existed, I'm like, wow, what is this? And it's so shocking, but it's just cheese. I think that's just a great example of how your family, your parents are controlling the environment that you're growing up in, and what you're learning as a child dictates the decisions that you make as a teenager, and then you can see stuff spring up in the reason why you make decisions as an adult.
I actually started working at 14. So that definitely gave me, you know, the strength of being responsible, but it also took away the childhood. And, you know, as far as me finding my identity, who I was, it gave me a relationships with other people in the world to see how they were raised working with people versus how I was raised. So it also gave me a different perspective on other people's lifestyle as well. And that actually molded me into who I was as a child and who I am now. Basically relationships and working early, but also, like Jenny said, I lost a lot of my childhood because I started working at 14.
I think in your teenage years, that's when you really start to develop a self-awareness of who you are as a person. As a kid, you're kind of dependent on about who your environment, your family, your relatives, your daycare, your friends that your parents bring around. They're really dictating to who your identity is. There's a transition that happens when you become a teenager, that it comes from the environment of your parents, of your immediate family, into your friends, your peers, your school environment. My son comes home today in 3rd grade and tells me about things he's learning in recess. And Jenny, you have an older teenage kids. I'm sure you've been around this block, that you can testify to how teenagers are being influenced by their friends. As a teenager, I know I took a lot of my identity was grown from my friendships and who I chose to surround myself with. Peer pressure, and in today's society, it's social media.
Social media, yeah. Social media is a very large impact on teenagers these days. I mean, you have people that's actually living their life off of social media, you know, basing what they're going to put on their Facebook or their Instagram to justify who they are as a person. And social media shouldn't be defining who you are as a person.
They seek attention, and they want to gain validation in who they are.
That's exactly what
You
it
know,
is.
and you know, I, as like being an older sister of, you know, teenagers as well, you know, I see a lot of that through their friends and as well as themselves, where they'll just be posting certain things on there, and then they go for the likes and just for the attention, and you know, they quickly want somebody to just comment on there to be like, to seek that attention that they're obviously not getting it outside of social media, from family, from friends, relationships, and just everything in general.
Absolutely. I actually looked up some statistics starting in 2015. It looks like 21% of social media actually has teenagers feeling worse about their own life because of what they see other friends and other people on social media doing. And I think that impacts a lot of people's lives in regards to how they want to walk in the world. You know, they actually are trying to fit in and do what everyone else is doing, and it's taking away who they are as a person. It's building on these walls of trying to please everyone else for the likes, or trying to take the right selfie so that they can
From the right angle. You know, like, how many times do you honestly take the same picture just to get the right selfie so that you can post it on Instagram or Facebook?
Probably more than like 20 times. I've seen it. I've seen it, you know, I've seen it actually. You know, I've seen, like I said, like my younger sisters or their friends, or, you know, parents that I know are teenagers. I've seen it, and you know, I've seen it, and they'll sit there like, oh, no, that one's not the one. And they'll take like 20 to 50 pictures at one time until they get the right picture and the right angle until they put it. And then when they like that photo, they'll put it up.
But let's get to the root of this. Why? Why do we got to take 20 pictures to get the right angle? And why are we only choosing one out of those 20 to post? It's because you're seeking admiration. You're seeking value. You're seeking approval from others. But really what you don't know is you don't know your identity. You don't know what you stand for. You don't know, you're not comfortable in yourself. And it goes back to loving yourself. But let's talk about like identity. So as a children and teenage, now that we are adults, how can we look to see how our identity was molded over time?
I think spending time with yourself and actually not trying to keep up with, the Joneses, or what they would say, keeping up with the Kardashians these days. I think actually focusing on yourself and knowing who you are as a person, and not trying to be like everybody else. Because when you start being like everyone else, you're molding yourself into being a counterfeit type of person. And that means you're actually living your life in the way of someone else's lifestyle, rather than living your life as to who you are as a person.
That's a great point, Shanara. I think building a relationship with who you are is critically important. And comparison, my favorite quote is comparison is death. Because as soon as you're comparing yourself to your neighbor or what they're accomplishing or what they look like, I mean, don't get me wrong, like if my girlfriend has the best way to do her eyebrows and I want my eyebrows fixed up, I'm going to ask her for some pointers. But that doesn't mean that I'm going to go and get the same eyebrows or I'm going to go and get the same tattoo because I like her tattoo. No, I'm going to do me. The best thing that you can do is be authentic, be yourself, build a relationship with who you are. Dr. Seuss says, be who you are and say what you feel, because those who mind don't matter, and those who matter don't mind. So I think it just comes down to, as an adult, knowing who you are and not molding yourself to who the world wants you to be, but be comfortable in your own skin and being in that, we live in such a diverse society, and it's okay. We don't have to live a cookie cutter lifestyle. We don't have to be what our parents or our neighbors or our bosses want us to be, but we need to be content, because at the end of the day, it's our head on that pillow at night.
I agree. I also feel as though, not letting your circumstances value who you are as a person. Sometimes as an adult, we get all and mixed in our emotions about trying to pay this or getting to work or doing things that have nothing to do with who you are as a person. If you have a bad day or if you have a bad morning, don't let that affect your whole day.
Yeah, I agree with that. It's just like you can wake up and be like, oh, well, how's this? My day's going to be like this. And everybody goes through things and trials and tribulations, but like Shanara said, you can't allow the circumstances in your life to make it be, or allow yourself to be this person when it's not really who you are. We all have a purpose in life, and not everyone sees that and understands that. So I've come to a point when you learn to love yourself and become the best investment for yourself, you got to put that time in with yourself in order to get to know yourself, because that's how you mold yourself to be who you are. And also that you have to be, to change yourself as well, because the things that you're going through growing up as a child or a teenager should not be able to affect you where you are as an adult either.
Right. And your walk is going to be different from everyone else's walk. Before I turned 30, I always was like, at the time of 30, I want to be married and I want to have a house and I want to have this many kids. And I was basing my life and my experience off of what someone else was doing, when I had to come into a realization, my walk is not going to be the same as everyone else's walk. And my accomplishments isn't going to be the same time frame as everyone else's. And you have to come into an agreement that your identity is different from everyone else's. We have this world where everyone wants to be in a fast-paced society where they have to get A, B, and C done by the time they're a certain age, when there's no time frame on life. There's no time frame on a life. It's great to have accomplishments, but at the same time, you have to be in tuned with your identity and walk your walk. Your walk and your path is not going to be the same as someone else's.
Hands down, that's so important. And I think that we have a hard time as society managing that because there's so many external pressures pressuring us. We have our family, you have Disney movies dictating to you. As a child, you play house, you plan your wedding. In teenage years, they're already molding, what do you want to be when you grow up? Let me put you in this academic course. That's all great, and I'm not saying to have a plan or goals are bad, but I'm saying be aware, have that self-awareness of how other people are dictating on which direction you should go. Because what's going to happen is you're going to go towards the direction that somebody's telling you to go, and then when you get there, you're going to regret it. Because you don't know yourself. You don't know what your needs are. You don't know what your wants are. You don't know what your desires are. Mm-hmm. So my recommendation is always to find out that yourself first, and then do it. I can speak on my my experience with that. In my life, our family believed in high school, college, marriage, career, marriage, and buying a home, having kids. And what happens in society who places that on you is that you end up being 40 with your kids, and your kids are moving on, and that nest is empty, and you're unfulfilled. And you are maybe divorced. And you're saying, where did the last 20 years of my life go? Because you were just following the motions. I don't want to be that person. And even if my life was a little bit different, and it's okay to live that life, I just know that I don't want that life. And that is finding out who I am as a person, what my needs are, and my desires, and my identity is. So that's important, just to be aware, have this self-awareness and a presence.
That's good. And having pace in life, it's times where it's like, I would feel like, I want this and I want it now. I don't want to wait. I want it tomorrow. I need to get it now. I need to find a fast way to get this money. Like, I want it now. And then I came into an agreement where it's like, everything's not going to happen overnight. And anything that's going to last and that's going to have a solid foundation is going to take time. And through the years of my life, I've noticed that time is good. Time is good for it to last.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't, like you said, like we all come from different backgrounds.
Mm-hmm.
Timing in my life was like, when growing up, I didn't have that patience because, I grew up with having nothing and not being able to do this. And I was kind of sheltered, but I wasn't kind of sheltered. Like, like now, for instance, like I'm 35, I'm going for my high school diploma because I put my life on hold for my child at the time, who was born as a child very early on. That was something that I couldn't control. He was born early, So now I'm in a point in my life where, before everybody's like, oh, well, they try to contradict you in your life and doing this and you got to do that. And like Kate has said, people try to tell you what to do with your life. And I did allow that, that's part of where the identity also comes in because, people try to tell you who you are and, dictate you and what you need to do and when you need to do. So you have to just you got to move yourself from that because now when you finally want to actually do something, like you said, your goals shouldn't be a time, but people expect it to be a certain time. That's not necessarily true.
Right.
It's taken me 3 years now to even make at least one effort to at least make that step to accomplish one part of it, of my GD. But it's just for people in general, not for my own and from my experience, but for everyone out there. Like, it does not matter. I'm in my middle age, they so-called say that I'm in my mid-30s, but it doesn't matter with age. I'm hoping within a year, maybe I'll have it, maybe I won't, depending on the time and effort that I put into it. But as well as that, you have to to also have these goals and these dreams, you also have to be patient and put time and work into them as well.
Yes. That was awesome, Jenny. So ladies, make sure you remember, you are more than your childhood, your past, and your finances. You are not what others say you are. People do not define your identity. You define yourself. Thanks for tuning in to Uncommon Women. Be sure to tune in to episode 4. We will actually jump into loving yourself before loving others. And subscribe to our webpage. We can be found at uncommonwomen.libsyn.com. Comment, share. We're also on iTunes under Uncommon Women. Any topics that you want to focus on, email us at uncommonwomenpodcast@gmail.com.
And also don't forget, we're also on Facebook, Uncommon Women. We're also on IG, Uncommon 3 Women. And on Twitter, Uncommon 3 Women. You can like, share, and comment. And let us know what you think. And we look forward to hearing from you.